Good evening. We'll call our meeting to order. If everybody would, please silence your cell phones. First on the agenda is discussion of election services request for the city of Keysville.
Body is a proposed agreement with the city of Keysville for the Board of Elections to do their elections. They've got one coming up in November. This is an arrangement that you currently have, I think, with the city of Waynesboro. It is relatively standard for a Board of Elections to handle a city's elections, but you've got to do that pursuant to contract. So you, the board, would agree with the City Council of Keysville for the Board of Elections to do the work. It's pursuant to Georgia law. The most important feature is that you are to be fully compensated for all the expenses. So the statute says that whatever cost we incur as the county doing it, we're supposed to get that back. So it'd be incumbent on your Board of Elections to determine what that number is. It may vary based on races, but specifically moving forward, your Board of Elections has an idea of what it would be, but even an estimate isn't the actual amount coming to you. It will be the total cost. That's what this agreement does. It'll allow them to serve in that capacity. I think the question that, for your question, is not necessarily anything to do with the agreement itself, but it's with the terms of how we move forward. In discussion with the county manager, y'all may want to have a discussion about the funding, because obviously it will be a burden for the taxpayers. It's supposed to come from the citizens of Keysville, and how you get that money is not within the contract. It's owed. So I'll leave that to both the conversation and the manager.
All right, I've got a few questions, and Brandon, if you'd come forward, Brandon Garrett, our Supervisor of Elections. The couple of issues around this specific election coming up, and then more broadly, but this coming election in November should be, one, has Keysville already done their qualifying? So they've handled that themselves at City Hall.
They have.
So they've got their ballot ready to be formatted. So that.
Yeah, I was forwarded all that today, so that's
Okay.
something that I've been working on.
All right, so there is a contested election with the city of Keysville.
There is.
So that's the first question. Then the second, we have a statewide election that same time. So we'll be doing early voting and have polls open in Keysville on election day. We already have that plan.
Correct, and we'll already have to order ballots and everything else for any of the provisionals or the mail-outs, so we'll already have to be doing that as well.
So the additional cost to the county would be minimal on this election because of the Public Service Commission election.
Correct.
In the future, though, it would be like with Waynesboro, it's around 10,000 per election. So that's what Keysville would be looking at.
And the majority of that cost comes from that early voting period of 3 weeks, and that's what Waynesboro typically does. So there is some nuances in what towns and cities can do. They could go as low as 1 week. It just kind of depends on how they want to proceed. So that is one way that the cost could be a little lower for Keysville.
Yeah, typically, the city of Waynesboro does 1 week of early voting for the city elections, when it's just a city election. I would, should we specify in our agreement that early voting, and see if they would agree to it, that early voting would be held here so that we don't have to have two separate early voting locations.
Yeah.
Early voting here, and that is 1 week of early voting unless it's a state election.
To me, that makes the most sense because we're already going to have a group working for early voting for Waynesboro when there are city elections here. It's kind of the center of the county, and it would definitely help keep the cost down a lot because then you could kind of split those costs.
Right.
And, otherwise we're going to have double the equipment and double the amount of poll workers. working.
Right, that would save Waynesboro funds and Keysville expense as well by having the early voting here, and then the two cities could split it. I understand the Board of Elections is talking with the other cities about offering to handle their city elections.
So I've been working on setting up a date in December after the November elections and after all of that is settled. Tentatively, everybody has settled on December 8th. everybody's gonna meet with Board of Elections from, Sardis, Girard, Midville, Keysville, all of the towns in Burke County, just to kind of get everybody on the same page of, we're here to help. The Board of Elections is really wanting to kind of have a uniform election for Burke County in general. But that's a conversation that we'll have in December and see where that goes.
Yeah. Typically, city elections are in the odd years, so there's not usually a county or state election. So those years would be entirely financed by the cities that we conduct the election for.
Unless Georgia keeps having odd
Yeah,
elections for us.
strange elect, who knows what they're gonna do with the General Assembly. Then the next question, should we ask for the funding up front or bill it once we know what the final expenses are? I guess that's a good question. With Waynesboro, we bill them, Michael, do you know that answer? We bill them after we had the election finished, and we know what the final costs are.
Well, when you and I were talking, you said it was a 50-50 share
Well,
split?
that was a misunderstanding on my part. I thought that's what was in the IG with Waynesboro, but it's not. But if we do the early voting here, then it would be a 50-50 share with the poll worker cost, which is 90% of what they're looking at.
And the reason I ask that is because some of the communities in my district are not financially able to do that, like Vidette, Midville, and Keysville. So I'm concerned that
And that's one of the
it may
reasons
be
why
a little bit
we're,
too expensive for them.
that's one of the reasons why we're suggesting that we do early voting here. Because typically on those odd years when we're having city elections, Waynesboro's gonna have an election, so we're already gonna have a team working here. And that way, all of those costs can be split.
So can you get some numbers together, or is that the number you sent out earlier today?
Yeah.
That was it?
Well, that is the number that all those numbers came from the past election that we did for Waynesboro. That's where those numbers came from.
The cities are fortunate this year that we have an election, so their costs would be minimal. So what we would charge them would be what it costs us to format the ballots. We've already are paying the poll workers, so I wouldn't expect there'd be any additional expense for poll workers
Nope.
for this election. But this is unusual that the cities get a bargain this time.
Sure. And really, the more cities that participate with Board of Elections, I think that cost would really go down a lot. Because, you start dividing that number that you saw earlier, 3 or 4 ways, and it's not that drastic.
So the biggest cost is paying poll workers. And if you gotta pay poll workers for 5 days plus a 6th day for the
You're paying
day of election,
4 poll workers, 5 days a week. Actually, it's 3 weeks of 5 days and then 2 Saturdays, so. But then if they're only doing city elections, that would only be that 1 week cost. But the way it's worked in the past, there's always been some other election tagged on, whether it's a referendum or something else.
So Brandon,
Yes, ma'am.
for Keysville, the city election, early voting, you're saying will only be 1 week, not the time period of the entire
It'll be
state set?
It'll be for 3 weeks
Okay.
This election.
Okay.
for this election.
Typically, city elections are 1 week of early voting. But we're gonna be open for 3 weeks because of the state election,
Right.
this
And-
November,
That's correct.
October and November,
So we'll be handling Keysville and Waynesboro.
Yes, ma'am.
if the board agrees, yeah.
As well as the statewide election that's
Right.
for Public Service Commissioner.
So do we need to make a motion, or is that just discussion tonight, or?
You've got the proposed agreement, so you would authorize the chairman to sign.
There is a kind of a time frame that we're working on if we're going to do it for them for November. Their attorney reached out to me last Friday. I think that's when I got Adam involved in. I was in Marietta yesterday with Secretary of State's office doing some training and had a chance to talk to the ballot team there. And so they're holding our ballots right now until Tuesday. They said we can hold them till Tuesday before we send them to the printer. in order to get this agreement in place. So that's kind of where we are, and that's why this was added to tonight's agenda.
So do I need to make a motion?
May I ask a question?
Yeah.
Just back and forth. This is the same agreement we have with other cities, municipalities, Waynesboro, same thing? Okay, I thought so. I just wanted to make
Yeah,
sure
if
there
you,
was some.
we updated the agreement, but yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I make a motion that we authorize Brandon and, or whoever to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Keysville for voting for 2025.
I'll
I
second. Oh, go ahead, Mr. Chair, I'm sorry.
Motion made by Commissioner Brazel, second by Commissioner Kelly. All in favor? It's unanimous, Bert.
Right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is the main reason why we called this meeting tonight is a request from the sheriff's office for funds for budget shortfall. So in the past, the sheriff has called a meeting to meet with us to discuss his budget. And as you all know, he never showed up. He requested a meeting a few weeks back. We scheduled it for tonight. He wanted it Tuesday night. We said we're gonna have it tonight so we could focus on his questions and his concerns. We scheduled it for tonight, and as you can see, he's not here again. Our rest of the commissioners took time off from what they were doing today to be here tonight to meet with him, just for him, and he's not here. So with that being said, it's estimated that the sheriff's gonna be over budget around $278,000. Is that correct, Michael?
I'll go ahead and answer for him. Yes, that is correct. As of payroll today, there's $53,464 left in the sheriff's department for the next payroll, and the payroll runs about $284,000 each payroll. So he doesn't have enough for the next payroll, plus he's got accounts payable that's next week, and there will be some the week after that, too.
Okay. So I have a list here I'm gonna read. I'm not gonna go over the whole list because it's long. But I am gonna read over some of it in the amounts to let you know that there's some expenditures on here that we feel like could have helped him stay within budget this year. And that's what I'm gonna say, you know. We don't tell him how to spend his money. It's his budget. He spends it. He buys what he wants to buy. We don't tell him how to do it. But we looked over some stuff, and there's some stuff we think that could have helped him stay within budget. And that's the way I'm gonna present it. We think that could have helped him stay within budget. So we got some plaques for $500. We've got a mural in his office for $3,221. We have a hotel room for the man who painted the mural for $805. We have new signage that was on his building for $2,940. We have some conference hotels in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, that's $200, $300, $400, $500. A Nobel conference bill for $473. Another Nobel conference bill for $750. Another hotel for $300 and something. Another hotel for $600 and something. Bouncy houses, $400 and something. A resort in Florida for $1,193. Not to mention all the deductible invoices on insurance for some of the lawsuits. Vehicle repair, $101,000. Contract with IT and cybersecurity for $123,000, which the county has IT department and the county has cybersecurity, probably just as good as what he's getting there. Chief of staff at $91,000. A PIO he hired for $40,000. An IT specialist for $85,000. Long story short, we come up with about $450,000 of the almost $300,000 he's going to be over budget that could have helped him stay within budget. And I guess I may be jumping the gun here, but I want to go ahead and get it out while it's on my mind. So the next item after this is a request for funds for litigation costs. So we get an email today from the sheriff, and I'm going to read this. It's to our county attorney. Please consider this correspondence a formal request to represent the office of the sheriff over the 2026 proposed budget. I am asking your assistance in filing a motion for a temporary restraining order and/or preliminary injunction and memorandum of law in support therefor, to prevent the Burke County Board of Commissioners from passing the 2026 budget, which already had its first official reading and does not provide a reasonable budget for the sheriff's office, which allows me to perform my constitutional duties required by law. If you are unable to work on my behalf of the office of the sheriff due to conflict your obligations to the Board of Commissioners, I ask you that the commission allow our conflict to counsel on my work on our behalf, to pay for him an attorney to yet sue us again and stop the budget. And people, do y'all realize if he stops the budget October the 1st, Burke County government will shut down? Nobody get paychecks. No EMA, no police, nobody will get paychecks if he stops the budget. It has to be passed by October 1st for us to write a check after October 1st. This is what everybody sheriff in this Burke County is asking us to do right here in this email. So now at this time, I'm going to open the floor to see if anybody would like to come up here and comment on this.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to ask a question to Mr. Waldrop. Currently, how many lawsuits do we have pending against the sheriff or the sheriff's office? Just,
Yeah,
you don't have to be
it's
exact, I'm sorry. but
about
just-
8 different lawsuits. Some are insurance claims that are similar to lawsuits where they filed a claim against us, which we still have to defend that insurance claim, but they haven't filed a formal lawsuit. But we've got, the Libby suit, the Daniels suit, Bowman, we got Brenda Johnson, we got, I'm trying to think, we got 2 or 3 others too. Lambert, yeah,
Discrimination lawsuit.
right, yeah. So they're mounting. We've got 2 insurance claims today.
And our insurance deductibles this year have gone from what to what?
It's up to $75,000 on one and $100,000 on another.
They used to be 10,
Yeah, it used to be 5 and 10, yeah. 5,000
and this is the
10,000.
part on number 4 that he's requesting more money for these litigations.
Yeah, right.
Thank you.
He doesn't have funds to pay for the deductibles for his current lawsuits, which we've got $10,000 of bills that still need to be paid that haven't been paid for deductibles, dealing with insurance cases, or insurance or litigation.
Not that it's something that anyone up here, anybody else wants to do, but as of now, that we're out of money, or that the sheriff's department's out of money, and we could technically stop payroll. Is that correct?
The county manager described it that under Georgia law, you set a budget and constitutional officers are to stay within that budget. So if the budget runs out, as the chairman described, you don't go any further. That's the way the law is supposed to work. And I think the intention that the sheriff got us all started here today was to ask for more money.
But I feel like most people, and I'll just say it, our sheriff's department is more than properly funded. I don't think anybody could argue that point, but I guess we will argue that point later on.
I'm gonna say this, and I know we left this off the list, and I'll probably gonna be chastised for saying it, but how much money did we spend on outsourcing inmates this year?
I'm trying to think how much we had. In the previous years, I know we spent 120 or better.
I think it's close to 500, wasn't it?
But it definitely was at least 100,000.
How much?
At least 100,000. I don't have that
This
exact
year.
figure.
We spent a lot more the previous year.
Oh, in previous years, a lot more than that,
Yeah.
yes. But the 2025 budget, about a little over 100,000,
So
from what I recall.
that 100,000 could be
Yeah, it could be
actually
listed
added
as
into
unnecessary
into this total
expenses.
also.
It could have been.
There are a lot of these expenses the chairman went over that I think anybody with common sense would say these are unnecessary expenses to the county, could have been prevented or avoided. We started notifying the sheriff's office probably 6 months ago that here's how much you got left, and we notify all the departments and give them a list of where they are currently and what their projected budget is based on their current spending. And so they've been put on notice for months that they're gonna run out of money unless they change the way they're spending. And so it's better than it was last year because of the hiring freeze the board put in place, but that hiring freeze didn't take effect until after the chief of staff and the PIO and the IT specialists were brought on. All three positions were positions that were not in the, were not budgeted for in the previous
But just to
budget.
clarify, the PIO, that was,
That's
that
only
person- that's only half.
half of the
what-
salary,
yeah.
only about 5 months or 4 or 5 months of
So it
salary.
would have been $80,000.
Right, yeah.
And to reiterate your point, I'm sorry, it's bad to say, but we're only $280,000 over. But that is only
Yeah.
because of the actions of our staff and this board. Other than that, we would be back at 1.2, 1.5, 2 million, whatever number it would be. The only reason that we're down that low is because of the actions of our staff and this board.
But also remember, we don't know what bills is coming in after October the 1st for September, maybe even August. All that will be figured in as over budget. So this is just what we projected. If we have bills that come in August, September that we don't know about, that's 2025 budget. But, and I will say, this list that we got here, I mean, it just shows where the priorities are. I mean, the priorities are not stay within budget to keep the deputies paid and the jail run and inmates in there. The priorities are signs and traveling and motel and conferences and like I said, it's duplicate services.
Well,
I mean, $123,000 and we have an IT and cybersecurity. I mean, it's just.
right now, the detention center's in budget.
Right, detention
Just-
center's in budget.
Just the sheriff's department's not.
Right, the sheriff's department is where
But,
the issue is.
in the middle of all this, we're in discussions right now about renovating the jail, spending somewhere between $15 and $20 million to renovate the jail. So it's not like he's underfunded. We're doing what we can to help protect them. We get emails all the time about how unsafe his people are, how his morale's down. I don't know what we can do to help his morale other than what we're doing at current.
So, question for y'all,
Yes, sir.
because this is not the first time we've played chicken with the sheriff's department in the budget. It keeps happening. And so, it's a shell game to move things around, to force you guys to come up with more funds. And you guys have stood firm, the last few months, this year, it's improved. But like you said, it's because you took direct action to start curbing some of those things. At what point is there, I know we've lost confidence in the ability of the sheriff to manage his budget. I think that's a general statement. I think there's I know there are a lot of citizens that feel that way because they reach out to me all the time because I'm the one dumb enough to come up here and talk. But I don't want to see him fail because that hurts all of us. But at some point, when he runs through his budget and cannot provide services, what happens in that case? I mean, who does that fall on? If he expends his budget, has no more funds, because you properly fulfilled your roles, he runs out, cannot provide services to the county, what does that look like? Who does that fall back on? Do we send all the deputies home? Because, that's not a safe environment, but something's got to give at some point.
Typically, I'll try to answer for the board, and typically the Board of Commissioners are the adults, and they go ahead and fund the salaries for those deputies, even though there's not the money in the budget for it, which is a shame. The budget's well-funded. There's plenty of money to pay deputies if you didn't go on excursions and waste money on signs and murals and all kinds, and staff that you don't need, trying to recover, rescue somebody's career that they got fired in another agency.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the other thing I'd point out is, I mean, you guys, one time before, we had a good spreadsheet up, and it was
Yeah.
the breakdown of what other surrounding counties are paying for law enforcement. We know we pay more per capita, per
Right.
resident here in Burke County than anybody around us, including Richmond, including Columbia County, the bigger counties. We're paying more. If you look at the size of the staff, and I'm not for necessarily cutting law enforcement officers, but you got a big staff there beyond sworn officers, yeah, that's the
There
one.
it is. Thank you.
That is disproportionate to the population here. So there are more employees in that sheriff's department than the average for the state of Georgia. You can take, and you can look at all of the counties, the average, there was numbers in the paper this week. I don't know, there was a ad in the paper, the True Citizen this week, that laid out the average county in Georgia. If you take them all and flatten them out, 70,000 residents. We have less than 25,000. The average sheriff's department in the state of Georgia is about 135 employees, and we're over that. And so if you take all of that data, I think you got to go to maybe Douglas County, or there's a couple of counties that have 60, 70,000 people that have 140 plus employees in their sheriff's department, but you got to go up to a county with 60 to 70,000 people to find a sheriff's department with more employees than ours. So there are clearly wasteful spending going on. There's clearly duplication of services going on, but there's also some bloat in that organization as well that would, so can you send some administrative folks home and leave deputies on the road? I mean, are there options like that? Is just trying to think out of the box.
Well, I think we can. I think we can pick, well, budgetary, the sheriff's his budget's his budget. So if we say we're gonna fund X, Y, Z for your deputies, for your road patrol, whatever it may be, it sounds great. Because there's a couple of them that I'd like not to get a paycheck tomorrow. That's just me. Maybe more than a couple. But when you think about it, it's gonna be hard for this board to pick and choose, because maybe somebody over here doesn't think the same way I do about one of them. The bottom line is, this group, y'all, a normal human being, supports law enforcement. I mean, 100%, whether it be on the street, whether it be when I say prayers of my girls, I mean, 100%. That's not what this is about. This is about foolish spending and not being able to cap it and not being able to figure out how to fix it. And I don't know that we know the answer. Excuse me. We do not know the answer. But I don't see how in the world we can cut off salaries for any sheriff's office employee. Yes, we could say the top 25 we're not paying. This body can do that. Am I correct? Well, never mind. I'm not talking to an attorney.
Yeah.
Well, let me.
Because again, the budget's a
I
sheriff's
don't want
budget.
to stop you because you're on the roll, but my job is to lay out what Georgia law says. And I'm going to speak, like Merv did, I'll speak for what this commission has tried to do for a long time. But under Georgia law, when the budget is allocated to the constitutional officer, that is the end of our control over it. So the constitutional officers have the ability to pick the number of employees they will have, the salaries of those employees. It is a frustrating position from the Board of Commissioners standpoint. To your earlier question, Mr. Ford, Georgia law says that they set the budget, the constitutional officer spends it. When there is a shortfall, it falls to the entity that budgets to handle the shortfall or not handle the shortfall, which is why this meeting is being discussed. That's the topic of today's discussion. But to Commissioner Lively's point, I want to make clear that the idea that a constitutional officer may limit their current expenditures in order to stay within budget or maybe an amended budget is one that happens in Georgia, happens all the time. But it is as a result of the constitutional officer consenting to that. This body cannot tell the constitutional officer, furlough these employees or do something different. I mean, all we can do is give money. That's it.
Or not.
Or not get
or
money,
not.
correct.
And-
I mean, if your checkbook is zero,
Yeah.
what are you
Tom.
going, are you gonna write a check with it?
Tom,
What
go.
happens if you write a check if it's zero?
So what happens when you have a constitutional officer that is incapable of managing the department, managing the budget? I mean, are we back to our recourse is citizen recall? I mean, is there hope of anyone stepping in to hold them accountable, other than cutting off the funds?
The
There's
governor-
hope of the governor, there's hope of the GBI, there's hope of the FBI. I mean, how many investigations or is our current sheriff under? I mean,
Yeah.
we can't seem to get any help, and we've asked. It's a great question. We go round and round trying to figure out what to do. The recall was a good option, and if we would have gotten 5,000 signatures, Sheriff Williams would have been right back on the ballot.
Yeah, it hasn't started back up. There is the opportunity to
For sure.
reignite
But
that.
I don't
So
know if enough people in Burke County actually care.
That's my
That's
concern.
the sad part of it.
That's my concern, and so I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to my fellow citizens in talking to you. So I hope people hear this and understand, this is not normal.
No.
This is not acceptable. And he has a very generous budget, as you can see, compared to every county around us. And so his inability to stay within that budget is, to me, disqualifying from him holding that office.
Well, you can put pressure on your local officials, not your local, I'm sorry, I didn't mean that right. Your senators and your congressmen and all that, to put some laws into place
Yeah,
to give us a little bit more authority and maybe to control his budget. But until that happens, then we have very little.
yeah, I think the state of Georgia has a problem with the lack of accountability for that, at least that position.
I agree
So
100%.
so everyone needs to reach out to their elected state and district and regional officials.
Clearly. Thank you all.
Thank you, Nathan.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, we know that we're here to address the shortfall, and we know that the shortfall is in payroll with the sheriff's department staff. And if we put ourselves in that situation as being, if we were an employee of the staff or either another company, my old company, if they say, hey, we're not paying you, I'm gonna be really upset because I have outstanding bills scheduled for certain times of the month. So we have to see what we can do to definitely pay our staff. So, Merv, you may be able to answer this. So, how can we pay every 2 weeks or put it in a certain contingency just for that item of payroll? So how can we do that?
Ultimately, you're right, it's not fair to those deputies, those employees who are working hard, protecting us, making the community safe, because their boss chooses to go travel to Fort Lauderdale and Miami and Charlotte, knowing that there's not enough money to make payroll. It's not their fault that that has happened. We can, I guess the board could authorize to pay payroll only, even if it exceeds budget, if that's what you want to do. I've got, today when I came back, there was a reimbursement request from the sheriff for travel to Fort Lauderdale, $230, $234. We could suspend payments that are payments other than payroll until the next fiscal year. That being said, when the bills come in, if they've got an invoice date, accounting and auditors are gonna require us to pay. If we pay those bills, they gotta be paid in the fiscal year where the invoice date is listed. So if we end up paying those after the fact, they're still gonna be charged to FY '25. I guess that it's complicated, unfortunately, and we have little control. Could say, no, we're not paying anything, but then you're not paying deputies. And I don't think anybody wants to make that decision.
So basically, you saying if we pay one, we have to pay them all.
At least pay, yeah, I think so. If we gotta pay
I'm not talking about deputies, I'm talking about bills.
bills, I think
If
we're
you
gonna
pay the
have to end
deputies,
up.
you have to pay the bills, because
Right.
it's gonna be
Right.
in the fiscal year of '25.
Unfortunately, our agent, the sheriff, has obligated the people of Burke County to pay certain expenses. And it's up to us to pay those expenses.
So we have no control.
We have very little to no control. We try to put in purchasing procedures, so if you get a PO, we know that it's in the budget. But this bill today came in, no PO, and it is, oftentimes, we get bills with no purchase orders, and that don't relate back to budget. And payroll definitely is not related back to budget.
Ma'am, if you would, talk into the microphone right there.
Is there any way that you can just specify a certain amount of money that he can use for travel, hotel rooms, whatever? So that he doesn't go to these resorts and these other places that we, the citizens, can't afford. And with our property taxes going up, thanks to him.
Ma'am, he can, as
Yeah.
we've been told by our county attorney, he can buy a tank or a helicopter if he wants to. And they
Not
know
this
we-
attorney,
Yeah.
previous, but it still may be the
But we
same
don't
thing.
have any,
No,
once the
I-
budget's set, he could use that 13 million any way he chooses. He could pay his employees high wages or low wages, or pay some high wages, some low wages. That's his call, not ours. Once he turns in a timesheet, we're obligated to pay that timesheet.
There's an Uber bill for $149.95. I Ubered, my house got struck by lightning a few weeks ago. I Ubered from Savannah to Waynesboro. It was $115. This just shows you he does not have any concern for your money. Zero.
Well, to the question too, just to make sure everybody understands. Georgia law is pretty clear, unlike there are some other states that do have different pots that a Board of Commissioners or the entity that taxes can put into a constitutional officer's budget. Georgia law is very clear that once you make the allocation, it's up to the constitutional officer to decide how to spend that money. We are required to give him an adequate budget, and from there, he can spend it as is. So the idea of buying equipment, that lies within the constitutional officer. The number of employees, that lies within the constitutional officer, unless the legislator says something differently, which in Georgia, there are very few situations where they step in.
I will make this comment, and, Michael, you can, help me with the numbers here. And the sheriff, he don't like it when I say this, so I'm gonna say it. He has a fund of confiscated assets that's his discretion. It's his money in his own checking account, that he can, correct me if I'm wrong, pay for everything but besides salaries. Is that correct with confiscated assets?
Anything other than salaries and benefits.
And there has been
As
up
long as
to,
it's law enforcement related.
and there has been up to what amount in there this year, roughly?
When he requested the funds to be transferred to his account.
Right.
It was $140,000.
100 and what?
$140,000.
140,000. We could have bought motels and plaques and office, signs and Ubers, and I'm just saying, y'all. I'm
And
just saying.
let me make the board aware that several counties in the state, about 20 of them, have law enforcement foundations where the public gets a tax deductible benefit by donating to a foundation which is to be used for law enforcement purposes. Our sheriff does have a foundation. He could use some of that money for law enforcement purposes to supplement any of these
What
other
o-
expenses.
What oversight is there on that foundation?
There is no oversight.
I just had another thought. I work for the federal government. One thing we have done in the past when budgets were tight and there were bills due is we called it the bow wave, where the bills basically got pushed into the next fiscal year. But that came off the top of the budget for the next year. So I don't know if that's an option for you, but just something I was thinking through. You know, if it's 200,000 he needs to finish out the year, then that's 200,000 he doesn't get in the 26 budget.
We've been over budget all but 1 year, 2 years. I mean,
Well,
if
that's
we
another-
don't stop being over budget, we're gonna still be over budget. I mean, you can you can push the can down the road, but if you don't do something to control it, I mean,
You're right, and it's never going to be enough money for the sheriff. You could give him 15 million next year, it's not gonna be enough. He's gonna figure out a way to spend it. There has to be consequence to how his reckless spending is continued. So my suggestion is, if he doesn't have any consequences, it's gonna continue, and it's never gonna be enough money for him.
Yeah.
Cut his budget. He's way getting more money than any of these other counties around here per capita. Cut his budget for next year. To me, it's your responsibility to withhold $1 million for next year, because you know he's going to go over budget. Cut his budget significantly for next year. Hold it back. You've got it in reserve. You know he's going to go over budget. And then pay that money at the end of the year when he can't make payroll. He knows you'll always pay the deputies. And he's banking on that. Cut his budget, hold it back. That way he doesn't technically go over budget. What's the point in having a budget if he doesn't pay attention to it?
That's why he's taking us to court next Thursday morning at 10 o'clock.
Right.
11 o'clock.
11 o'clock.
And he'll keep doing it over and over and over.
But again, Dr. Ford, I gotta give our staff credit and these other board members. Last year's 1.2, no, I know you're not saying that. I'm just saying, we are trying everything. And what you're saying, we've had these conversations.
I
don't-
100% agree.
no, I
I'm
know
not
you do.
dealing with a rational
No.
person here.
And let me ask, while you're up there, Adam Nelson, even during budget times for 2027, can we legally cut a constitutional officer's budget? Can we lower his budget? Not during this fiscal year.
The law requires you to give enough money for that constitutional officer to do their job. That number is within the discretion of this board. So when you say cut or not cut, the number is whatever the number is. So for example, if you had a constitutional officer that had some duties that for whatever reason, that cost goes down, or which that's not really the way the world works, but let's just assume the budget lowered, then the number could be lowered, could be cut. The reality is it's on a year-by-year basis, and the idea of fluctuating, it is possible. I would imagine historically budgets usually go up over time, but you're not required to keep it the same. You as the Board of Commissioners, your job under Georgia law is to set the constitutional officer's budget, and that requirement is for that constitutional officer to do their job.
And I'll also add, which most of y'all know, but for those who don't, our staff and this board this year were challenged to lower this entire budget by 5%. And they did give grace to constitutional officers, and they were level, basically. The sheriff's up 1.29 or whatever that number may be. It's real close to that. So nobody, by doing that, by going 5% lower, we actually probably saved 13%. Because normally we're up 7 to 10%, I would say, year to year. Is that probably fair, Michael? So I can't say that this board and our staff helped save y'all 15%.
I think you're heading in the right direction.
For sure, but 15% of a $100 million budget, if you, depending on how you look at it, or 50 million, depending on what the tax base, that's a lot of money that this crowd's trying to help y'all and save y'all, and us, we're taxpayers as well.
Right.
So yes, ma'am, and I know you weren't getting on us.
No, I'm not
with
getting
you.
on you, but we're gonna be here next year, and
yes,
the
ma'am.
year after, and the year
Until the
after.
FBI does their job.
Or the
We're gonna
voters of
be
Burke County.
I'll be honest,
Eventually,
Merv,
yeah.
I talk to,
Yeah.
I talk to dozens of people every day. People are afraid to be heard. They're calling Nathan, I want you to do this, but I don't want my name involved in it.
I've been hearing that for 5 years. Yes, ma'am, I know exactly how it works.
Exactly.
Right?
Nobody
So,
wants to
I
be
think people-
harassed, yeah.
And we have called your senators and your representatives and your governor. We can't get a meeting with the governor. So it's kind of apathy, not only at the citizen level, but at the higher government level as well. We've done it.
Yeah.
A lot of people have. So I don't know. That's my only suggestion is continue to scale back. Other people have to live within budgets, but it's never going to be enough for him.
Well, we're missing one point that we started out with, that he is asking us to take a vote tonight to pay an attorney to sue us to stop the FY 2025 budget, 2026 budget.
Are you mandated by law to pass a budget?
Yes.
So how does that work?
That's a great question.
Our
I'd be-
attorneys over the last
Yeah.
5 years that
Yeah.
I've been here continue to tell me, correct me, Mr. Nelson, if I'm wrong, that we've never had to do this before. We're in a gray area, we don't know, so
Right.
we don't.
So if you don't pass a budget, you're going against the law, and he's asking you to go against the law.
But a judge has to tell us not to pass the budget.
And the bigger thing is, if we have to do that, and we have to wait to go to court, and we can't pass the budget, then what are we gonna do for everything else, like emergency services, as far as the EMA, the road department?
Because we're
trash.
taxpayers, we're paying
Your
for that
trash
service.
will not get picked up.
Yep.
How many of you would be upset
Don't
without
bring
your
up the red
trash?
can, man, we got enough problems.
I think we ought to call him on the phone tonight personally. He called this meeting. He says any of us can call him on his cell phone.
He might need his number, let me know.
It's
So what else
pitiful.
we got to
It's really
discuss?
pitiful to run it
So-
like this.
Adam, I guess, we need to make a decision on furnishing him attorney at the cost we pay our county attorney, is that correct?
Yeah, just to explain that, since that has been discussed. Under Georgia law, if a constitutional officer believes that they have some right they need to go to court over, and the county attorney cannot serve because of the conflict, which in this case, if a constitutional officer is bringing an action against the Board of Commissioners, I am conflicted out. There's a procedure under Georgia law in which the Chief Judge of Superior Court can appoint an attorney for the constitutional officer to bring that claim. That is solely within the discretion of the constitutional officer. What this body has previously done in order to avoid the expense is circumvent that process by allowing the constitutional officer to hire an attorney at the same rate as the county attorney. That is why you currently have conflict counsel representing him in the cases that will be starting or already underway and next Thursday. My suggestion would be to hold the same course as you have before. You expand that representation to include the claims that he's put forth this afternoon, or today, this morning and this afternoon. It is not a comment on you approving it. In fact, quite the opposite. We will have to defend it. But it is a decision of the constitutional officer that Georgia law allows them to make. And if that is the purview of the board and you continue the same way, then the motion would be to allow the sheriff to hire an attorney at the county attorney rate to bring the claims presented.
Pretty bad, we gotta prove him to sue us, ain't it?
So the board has no discretion. The elected official has all discretion of whether to sue the Board of Commissioners. If he decides to sue the county, the board has to appropriate funds for an attorney for him to file that suit. Either the county attorney or,
Right.
and if the county attorney is going to defend the county, then we've got to appropriate funds for him to file whatever litigation he wants to file.
Yeah, under Georgia law, constitutional officers do have the right to bring the claim. It's a little bit more in the weeds than that, but considering what's been presented, yes.
Okay, Evans, we need a motion.
I don't want one, but.
Yeah.
Okay, I move that we allow the sheriff to hire a county attorney at the same rate as the commissioner's rate.
Can I ask a question? What happens if we don't get the votes for this tonight?
So if you don't get the votes, then the constitutional officer can go to the chief superior court judge, get an order, and then it happens the same way. You are just recognizing that in order to avoid the cost associated with that, you're just circumventing it. There's other reasons we've discussed too that I prefer this way, but I clearly understand it's confusing. I think the chairman said it's right. It is a shame that you have to approve yourself to be sued, but.
So in other words, if you don't get the votes tonight, he would have to go to a Superior Court judge and tell them.
It would cost us,
Then it would cost us more.
yes.
Then it would cost us more. It would be at whoever you pick, correct?
Yeah, the chief judge doesn't have discretion in that respect. The chief judge's inquiry is not into whether or not it's a good claim or should it move forward. It's whether we're conflicted out, which I will tell you, we are conflicted out. And I'll say that publicly, which is,
Well,
I've lost the
I've been on
argument
this
now.
board, I've been on this board for 9 months, and this is the second time he's put me in a very difficult position, he and he alone. And it's not very well taken.
Well, let me help you. I'll second Commissioner Kelly's motion.
Motion made by Commissioner Kelly, second by Commissioner Lively. All in favor? All opposed? All right, Murph.
I don't blame you.
Okay, well, now, what about number 3? Did we settle that one?
I don't think we settled it,
Okay.
but,
Number 3, I think we just take it day by day.
yeah, and just see, we'll, and
Just think about
Well, when,
it. Yes, sir.
And we're just being honest with you, we're gonna make sure payroll, they're gonna get paid.
when is payroll? I'm sorry, is it?
2 weeks from today. That's why, one of
So
the
hit
reasons
today,
for
that's why I didn't know if
today
it was today or tomorrow or
is
next
we
week.
wanted to make sure we knew exactly where he was. We thought he might have run out of total budget today with today's payroll, but he's still got 53,000. It's not nearly enough to cover
It's
payroll in 2 weeks.
$19,000 a day is payroll for the Burke County Sheriff's Department.
It's about
That
right.
excludes detention center. Michael, is that correct? I took good notes.
So, yeah, he's got enough payroll for 3 more days.
Thank y'all for coming.
But
Anybody else in the audience like to speak or say their piece?
thank you for caring enough to come.
For sure.
Thank y'all.
Appreciate it. Meeting adjourned.
Thank y'all very much.